Recently, we've seen how a shortage of computer chips, like the one I have here, you can hardly see it, I imagine. It's called a semiconductor. It's caused delays in production of automobiles that has resulted in reduced hours for American workers. A 21st century horseshoe nail. This semiconductor is smaller than a postage stamp, but it has more than 8 billion transistors. 8 billion transistors, 10,000 times thinner than a single human hair in this one chip. These chips are a wonder of innovation and design that power so much of our country, enables so much of our modern lives to go on. Not just our cars, but our smartphones, televisions, radios, medical diagnostic equipment, and so much more. We need to make sure these supply chains are secure and reliable. I'm directing senior officials in my administration to work with industrial leaders to identify solutions to this semiconductor shortfall and work very hard with the House and Senate. They've authorized the bill, but they need roughly $37 billion short term to make sure we
Our constitutional journey did not stop then, and it must not stop now, Judge. And we'll be faced with equally consequential decisions in the 21st century. Can a microscopic tag be implanted in a person's body to track his every movement? There's actual discussion about that. You will rule on that, mark my words, before your tenure is over. Can brain scans be used to determine whether a person is inclined toward criminality or violent behavior? You will rule on that.
This is an Omega Watchman Media Group production.
Due to the mature nature of this content, language, and depth, viewer discretion is advised.
But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words, and seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand, or in their foreheads.
This is our little device. That thing at the bottom is just to hold the threads in place, because they're just like little fine wires. I mean, frankly, to sort of simplify this, what we're, I mean, it's more complicated than this, but it's, in a lot of ways, it's kind of like a Fitbit in your skull with tiny wires. Yeah, no wires. In terms of getting a link, so that, you need to have the device, a great device, and you also need to have a great robot that puts in the electrodes and does the surgery. So you want the surgery to be as automated and as possible, and the only way you can achieve the level of precision that's needed is with an advanced robot. The link procedure, the installation of a link, done in under an hour. So you can basically go in the morning and leave the hospital in the afternoon. And it can be done without general anesthesia. And we actually ultimately want this robot to do essentially the entire surgery. So in everything from incision, removing the skull, inserting the electrodes, placing the device, and then closing things up and having you ready to leave. So we want to have a fully automated system. So this shows you at sort of close-up view, which I think is actually not too gruesome, of the electrodes being inserted in the brain.
It did not stop then, and it must not stop now, Judge. And we'll be faced with equally consequential decisions in the 21st century. Can a microscopic tag be implanted in a person's body to track his every movement? There's actual discussion about that. You will rule on that, mark my words, before your tenure is over. Can brain scans be used to determine whether a person is inclined toward criminality or violent behavior? You will rule on that. And Judge, I need to know whether you will be a justice who believes that the constitutional journey must continue to speak to these consequential decisions, or that we've gone far enough in protecting against government intrusion into our autonomy, into the most personal decisions we make. Judge, that's why this is a critical moment. There are elected officials in this government, such as Mr. DeLay, a fine, honorable, patriotic man, and others, who have been unsuccessful at implementing their agenda in the elected branches. So they've now poured their energies, as the left would if it were different, they've now poured their energies and resources into trying to change the court's view of the Constitution. And now they have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity
to address the the global semiconductor shortage. President Joe Biden expected to sign an executive order in the next few weeks that would call for a comprehensive review of supply chains. The White House also expected to consider incentives to bring manufacturing of these chips back to the U.S.
Meeting of a bipartisan group of senators and House members to address an issue of both concern to our economic security as well as our national security, the resilience and reliability of our critical supply chains. This is a critical area where Republicans and Democrats agreed. It was one of the best meetings. It's the best meeting I think we've had so far, although we've only been here about 5 weeks. It was like the old days. People actually were on the same page. There were good bipartisan work has already been done. The leaders of this operation, the House and Senate, already have done great work, and I want to thank them for their leadership. We're here to build on that, and the bottom line is simple. The American people should never face shortages in the goods and services they rely on, whether that's their car, or the prescription medicines, or the food at the local grocery store. And remember, the shortages in PPE during the pandemic, that meant we didn't have masks. We didn't have gowns or gloves to protect our frontline healthcare workers. We heard horror stories of doctors and nurses wearing trash bags over their gown, over their dress, in order so they wouldn't be in trouble because they had no gowns, and they were rewashing and reusing their mask over and over again in the OR. That should have never happened, and this will never happen again in the United States. Period. We shouldn't have to rely on a foreign country, especially one that doesn't share our interests or our values, in order to protect and provide our people during a national emergency. That's why one of the first executive orders I signed, as some may remember, was to ensure that we're manufacturing more protective equipment for healthcare workers here at home. And today I'm shortly going to be signing another executive order that will help address the vulnerabilities in our supply chains across additional critical sectors of our economy, so that the American people are prepared to withstand any crisis and rely on ourselves. This is about making sure the United States can meet every challenge we face in this new era, pandemics, but also in defense, cybersecurity, climate change, and so much more. And the best way to do that is by protecting and sharpening America's competitive edge by investing here at home. As I've said from the beginning while I was running, we're going to invest in America. We're going to invest in American workers, and then we can be in a much better position to even compete beyond what we're doing now. Resilient, diverse, and secure supply chains are going to help revitalize our domestic manufacturing capacity and create good paying jobs. Not $15 an hour, which is we need to do someday, and soon as are better in my view, but jobs that are at the prevailing wage. We're going to spur new opportunities for small businesses, communities of color, and economically distressed areas. And I will drive new investment in research and innovation and our workforce, investing in training and university partnerships that are going to lead to new technologies and new solutions. And all of this won't just strengthen our domestic capacity, it will help unleash new markets around the world and grow opportunities for American business to export their goods that we're going to be making. These are the kinds of common sense solutions that all Americans can get behind. Workers and corporate leaders, Republicans and Democrats. It's about resilience, identifying possible points of vulnerabilities in our supply chains, and making sure we have the backup alternatives or workarounds in place. Remember that old proverb, for want of a nail, the shoe was lost. For want of a shoe, the horse was lost. And it goes on and on until the kingdom was lost. All for the want of a horseshoe nail. Even small failures at one point in the supply chain can cause outside impacts further up the chain. Recently, we've seen how a shortage of computer chips, like the one I have here, you can hardly see it, I imagine. It's called a semiconductor. It's caused delays in production of automobiles that has resulted in reduced hours for American workers. A 21st century horseshoe nail. This semiconductor is smaller than a postage stamp, but it has more than 8 billion transistors. 8 billion transistors, 10,000 times thinner than a single human hair in this one chip. These chips are a wonder of innovation and design that power so much of our country, enables so much of our modern lives to go on. Not just our cars, but our smartphones, televisions, radios, medical diagnostic equipment, and so much more. We need to make sure these supply chains are secure and reliable. I'm directing senior officials in my administration to work with industrial leaders to identify solutions to this semiconductor shortfall and work very hard with the House and Senate. They've authorized the bill, but they need roughly $37 billion short term to make sure we have this capacity. We'll push for that as well, but we all recognize that the particular problem won't be solved immediately. In the meantime, we're reaching out to our allies, semiconductor companies and others in the supply chain to ramp up production to help us resolve the bottlenecks we face now. We need help to stop, we need to stop playing catch up after the supply chain crisis hit. We need to prevent the supply chain crisis from hitting in the first place. And in some cases, building resilience will mean increasing our production of certain types of elements here at home. So I thank you all. I'm very optimistic about the meeting we had today with our congressional colleagues. And now I'm going to walk over and sign that executive order.